So I was reading a real interesting thread on the internet, and there was some people that stated that they believe that there's aliens that exist. And quite honestly, I immediately joined the forum in the discussion, and I kind of gave them my opinion on the whole thing. And quite honestly, just to kind of back up the idea that aliens do exist 100%, and really the idea behind it is pretty easy to understand. I mean, you think about Earth. We know that there's a universe, and then that there's a galaxy called the Milky Way galaxy. Then there's our star, which is obviously our solar system, or the sun's orbit rather, or the gravitational force around the pretty much the circumference of the the gravitational force that the Earth, the planets, the inner and the outer planets orbit around in the Milky Way galaxy. But my point is, we know that there's life on planet Earth because we live here, obviously. So we know that there's life on this planet. And we even have history to back up that, millions of years ago. Again, put aside what you hear about religion. Put aside, I'm not here to argue about religion. I'm just here to argue about, the existence of aliens, because I believe that there's more out there than what we know. Think of it like this, okay? You want proof that aliens exist? Think of it like this, okay? We know that there's, the way life works on this planet. Earth is a habitable planet because we obviously can survive here, and there's been species that have survived too and evolved over the years. Science has proven this over and over again. So you think about plants and animals and humans, even though humans are animals, but their own species, rather, it works. So when we know that there's other planets out there, like Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, even though Pluto's really called a dwarf planet, it's not really called an actual planet, but it's just like a subgroup for it, so it's a planet, but it's not really a planet. Does that make sense? Although I personally think it's still a planet, but it's a different classification. It's just how organized science gets. But anyway, we know that there's other galaxies out there. Or if you want to get really technical, look at our solar system. They say that the Milky Way galaxy, and I think it's a lot bigger than what science implies it to be, but it's pretty big. The smallest estimate that I've heard that people compare it, and you can look it up on the internet, but not all the answers on the internet are always right, obviously. But, there's some scientists that agree that the universe, or rather the Milky Way galaxy is, at least in diameter, and this is just an estimation, just to get you thinking, but it's 120,000 light years. And, 1 light year, if I'm not mistaken, was was it 5.88 trillion miles in diameter? Or rather, again, I have to look it up. It's been a while. But my point is, obviously people say the universe. People still. I don't know if people want to say that it's a theory that they believe that the universe is infinite or there's more than one universe. Personally, I think it's all true. I think it would make perfect sense to say that the universe is infinite because everything is made of energy. Everything's endless, sort of. I mean, again, I know I'm not really a licensed scientist, but I've been heavily involved in science, but you want proof that aliens exist. I mean, you think about that for a second. Think about life on this planet. We know that life exists on this planet. We know that there's other planets out there. We know there's other universes. We know there's other galaxies. We know there's other dimensions. It can be as big as you want it to be. Whatever is outside the universe. I mean, I know that might sound weird, but how big is big? What is out there that we don't know? We know there's other galaxies. We know there's other solar systems. We know there's other stars. We know there's other planets. But the question is, though, why wouldn't other life forms be out there? I mean, you think about it. We already know that, if it can happen once, it can definitely happen again. And maybe we're looking at all the wrong places, sure, but let's take this into consideration. Maybe every life form is completely different than the human race. For example, maybe there's, let's take Mars, for example. Maybe, we know Mars is pretty much a wasteland for the most part. Maybe Mars at one point had life on it. But you can find fossilized bacteria of it. I mean, look at Earth. We know there were civilizations way before the human race came along, or at least evolved into what it was. We know that there's you go to the museum, for example. The museum of dinosaurs, for example. You can whether you're religious or not, it don't matter. There is enough evidence to prove that those dinosaur bones are millions of years old, and it just traces them all the way back to like prehistoric times. We know that there was life way long ago. Again, the definition of a life form would just be something that it lives and then it dies, obviously. And animals in this case, bigger animals, pterodactyls, T-Rexes, Tyrannosaurus. I know I'm not probably the best. There's names out there. Look at any classification of like anything that just lived a long time ago. There's people that have spent their whole life studying like what they find in the ground, and they find like these big old bones, and they're like a T-Rex's skull is like bigger than like maybe 10 people. It's like that thing's huge, man. How like animals were so big back in the day, but then they just slowly shrank somehow. That makes sense. But my point is, you think about like time goes on, and aliens they have to exist because there could be life forms out there that they're inhabited on other planets. Think about it. If Earth was visited by like ETs or extraterrestrials, and I don't mean like through conspiracy theories, but I mean just through like it wouldn't surprise me. It'd be like if you were to realistically think about the idea that there's other planets out there, why would other life forms not exist? Just because we haven't found them doesn't mean that they don't exist. Look at throughout our history. Look at how many things that people have said that they didn't believe that existed until science came along, and pretty much, once people were brave enough to study like a certain subject for a while and say, hey, this isn't true. We should, reconsider this. People looked at it and took that seriously. For example, look at how many people said that, bears were monsters. And that even though they still do attack in a lot of form, but they're just animals. Look at how many things that look at how many people said that that they thought the Earth was flat, and then they eventually realized that it was round because other planets were round and the moon was round. Why would the Earth just be round? Why would the Earth be flat? My point is, if you think about aliens existing, it's just a question that people don't really have proof, or at least it's not to the public yet. It's maybe governments do have aliens in like some sort of like top secret laboratory that's not said to exist, but who knows? And if that did happen, that would just be some crazy luck that maybe they crash landed on this planet, like the Roswell incident, for example. If that is true, like again, I can't prove it, but who's to say it's not though? You know what I mean? That'd be pretty interesting, pretty weird. That any human being that would be able to lay eyes on that would be able to make sense of that. Life is indeed stranger than science fiction. But are there life forms out there? Yes. Because why would we be alone? If there's other planets out there and we live on this planet, for example, who's to say we're alone? I think 100% that there's aliens out there, and that's all the proof that people need. The only question is, when are we going to find it, or if it hasn't already been discovered, when is it going to be released to the public? What do you guys think?